There it is. I want to believe, but Jesus is boring. Has anybody ever thought that, said that, felt that in their life? I saw several hands shoot up before I even asked the question. Some of us have felt that way in our life. And if you have, I want you to know this. One, you're not alone. Two, I get it sometimes. But three, what if there's another way that we can look at it? Right? Because here's what I know. Not just as your pastor or as your friend or whatever you want to call me, or just the weird old bearded dude, whatever you want to call me, is that when we first look at Jesus, I get that thought. When we first look at it, it's like, oh man, doesn't Jesus just seem like this guy that we can't do anything? Like, just a lot of rules. Some of you guys have felt that way. Maybe you don't want to raise your hand. If it's your first time, maybe you felt that way. That's why you haven't been to church. That's okay. But right now, what I want you guys to do is, if you got a piece of paper on the way in, perfect. If you brought a pen, that means you're paying attention to our social media. If you did not get a pen, or if you didn't bring a pen, or if you don't have a piece of paper, raise your hand really quick. Because I'm going to have, I think we have somebody, no? Do we have extra paper? Okay, Tegan's going to help out. Are we give it up for Tegan? There it is, okay. All the 7th grade boys back there were like, yeah. Okay. Tegan, she's sprinting. Yikes, that's my fault. She's going to help pass out some paper. And what we're going to do for just a second is we're going to play some music, but I'm going to give you guys the opportunity that I want you guys to, in whatever form you want, I want you to depict what Jesus looks like, sounds like, is like, whatever to you. So maybe you draw some descriptive words, okay, if you're a wordsmithonian, it's a thing, I think. Or maybe you draw a doodle, which is fine, right? And maybe some of you just don't care about what I'm saying. You can doodle anyways. That's fine. But I want you guys to take just a second. If you got a pen, if you don't have a pen, you can borrow it from somebody next to you. Don't breathe on it or like lick it or anything. It's gross. But if you need paper, you can keep your hand up. And Tegan is running around like a crazy woman. She'll help out. Thank you guys, Tegan. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. But hey, we're going to play some music, and I'm going to give you guys like 30 seconds to a minute. I want you guys to write down and describe who and what Jesus is to you. And I want you to be honest. No one's going to look at these, okay? I want you to just write it down before we get really rolling in this talk and think about it tonight. Just exactly what you think of God and the rules or the whatever it is that you think. Just go for it. Write it, draw it, whatever. All right, guys. Okay, so, again, I want you to stop writing. I know, I questioned if I should give you guys pens and paper because now half of you are not going to pay attention the rest of the night. I get it. But here's what I want you to do. Hold on to that, okay? Because as we go through tonight, I want you to be open to a different idea of who you have for Jesus, depending on what you wrote. Okay? But I want us to keep these, and then as we go into small groups, where I said you don't have to share, I want you to know that. You do not have to share these to anybody. You can hold on to them, because maybe there's part of you that feels a little embarrassed because you feel like, I should be living this way, but here's my problems, and I get that. That's okay. But if you want to share it, tonight in small groups is a great time to do that, so you guys can talk about, because maybe somebody else feels the exact same way. Because here's where we often go when we think about Jesus and what it means to follow Jesus. It's this. We oftentimes think that means we have to miss out on a lot, right? I think we can agree on that, right? For a lot of us, when we think about Jesus and what it means to follow Jesus, we think, well, that means that I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I can't hang out with them, or, well, I really want to do this, but that means that, it just doesn't work. So for so many of us, we just think of Jesus in this way of it's not fun. We're missing out on all this. And if I get serious about him now, I'm going to miss out on my young lives. My fun, the crazy time before I'm an adult and get boring, right? Let me tell you, being an adult sometimes is really boring. But so many of us think that. And then here's where a lot of us also think, if we're kind of on the edge of if we should follow Jesus or not, we get to this point. We say, well, I'm going to get serious about Jesus when I'm older. Because when I'm older and boring and have to pay bills and all the right, then I'll get all the other boring stuff, which is probably also Jesus. Some of you thought that. When I was in high school and junior high, that was kind of my thought too. I shared a couple weeks ago, I got torn up and split in between. Should I do this with my friends? Here's the church. Here's what the church means. And I got kind of pulled in different directions and all these different things. And I thought, well, I'm just going to get through this, get out of here. And then as I went back to church, it was like, I don't know what to do, because Jesus was boring, because my friends were saying, let's do this. And I got stuck, right? But for many of us, we just think that Jesus is boring. We think that means we can't do things. And for some of us who say, no, I believe in Jesus. I know who Jesus is. I have a relationship with him. But I'm not going to get serious about that relationship until later. I still got a lot of life to live before I got to make that decision or kind of go in that direction. For so many of us, that's where our thought goes. It's, well, I want to do what I want to do right now, and I'm willing to say yes fully later. Not yet. Because right now I still want to do what I want to do. I still want to hang out with those people. I still want to do this. I still want to not care what my parents think and do whatever I want, even though they say do that. Like, maybe some of us are there, that we know who Jesus is, but we think that if we say yes to him, that means we're saying no to everything else. If we say yes to him, that means our life gets boring because all of the fun, and I'm quoting that, fun gets taken away. And again, tonight as we dive into this, I want you guys to have a different idea by the time we walk out of here. For some of you on your piece of paper, you wrote boring. Okay? For some of you, you wrote loving. Maybe some of you wrote angry. Maybe some of you wrote nothing. And that is okay. We're all over the map when it comes to who Jesus is. But as we walk away tonight, what I want us to understand is that saying yes to Jesus, maybe instead of means saying no to everything else, maybe we say yes to Jesus. Doesn't stop everything else, but it opens up a different picture and a different world that's better than what we thought. I know, it's an idea. It's crazy. But here's this first thing I want us to think about. Okay, if now, you got to take notes tonight, suckers. Okay, with your pen and paper, here's what I want you to write down. When we know Jesus as a friend, we live a relaxed life. You don't have to, but I think it's pretty smart. Okay, I got you, Ruby. When we know Jesus as a friend, we live a relaxed life. And here's why I say this. The first verse I'm going to throw up here. If you got your Bible, open up to this, or you can write on your notes and check it out later. Circle, highlight, underline. John 15:15. And it's this idea of friendship when it comes to Jesus, okay? And it says this. It says, I no longer call you servants because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. Here's what that says. Okay, I no longer call you servants because a servant does not know his master's business. Here's what it means. If we were just servants of God, right? If that's all we were, that means that we wouldn't really know what the game plan is. We wouldn't know what we're supposed to be doing. We wouldn't know the reason for this or that. We would just be marching orders and we'd just be doing exactly what we were told all the time. And there'd be no understanding, right? But Jesus says, I call you friends. It says, instead I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. Because what are we called to do? It's two things. Anybody remember? We say it all the time. What is it? Somebody say it. Thank you. Love God and love others. Jesus made this known to us. We're supposed to love the people around us. We're supposed to love our God. That's the purpose of everything. That's what we're called to do. So if we were servants, we would just be told, hey, you need to go rake their yard. Hey, you need to go do this. You need to invite the... We would just be told tasks to do. We wouldn't be a part of the bigger picture. And so the cool thing is that when we have a relationship with Jesus, when we are friends with Jesus, we can live a relaxed life because we know what the plan is. We don't have to wonder, okay, what does tomorrow bring? Okay, what's tomorrow? No. Jesus breaks it down. We're called to do two things. That's the big picture. That's the whole thing. Is love God and love others. And we've talked about this so many times. If you're doing those two things, one, you're following in what Jesus has called us to do. Okay, that's first. Second, if you are doing those two things, you can't be doing anything bad. Because if you're doing something bad, it means you're probably not loving God or loving other people. Okay? Like I know I always get this. Well, like the other day, like my parents told me to like clean my room before I went out, and I told them I cleaned the room, and then like I went out anyways, but I didn't clean the room, and then I got... No, that means you're not loving other people, which is your parents, which means you didn't do the right thing, right? Any idea or example you throw at me, if it doesn't go through those two filters and pass those filters, then we're doing the wrong thing. But again, we can live a relaxed life because we know what the game plan is. We know that when we accept Jesus into our hearts, we get to live eternity in heaven with him. That's it, right? Pretty simple. But we don't get to be friends with Jesus until we're in a relationship. And when we're in a relationship, that's us saying yes to Jesus. And when you say yes to Jesus, you say yes to so much more. And I know it oftentimes feels like we're saying no. I know so often it feels like we're turning away everything that sounds good and sounds fun and is full of life and all those things. But again, I want us to be open to the idea that maybe it's not saying no to a bunch of things, but it's saying yes to something that will give us so much more. And so as we go through life, there's going to be distractions, there's going to be temptations that make it difficult for us to say no to these things and say yes to Jesus. There's going to be a lot of things that pull us in different directions because, again, we say, well, that seems fun. That feels good. Those people are cool, whatever you want to describe them as or whatever situation. But what we have to do is when we say yes to Jesus, we're saying yes to Jesus leading us. Now, more notes. Man, take and don't let me forget. We got to do notes every week because I got some good stuff this week. We're going to talk about 3 ways that Jesus leads us, okay? And this is how we can live a relaxed life knowing that Jesus is leading us. And here's the 3 ways. Ready? Number 1, leading from the front. Okay? Now, if you think through life, there's probably a situation where somebody, follows a leader or whatever, where people were guiding you. Maybe, for my kids who are in kindergarten and first grade, not now because school it's not like in person, but before, when they had to go to the bathroom, right, there was the teacher and all the kids lined up behind them and you walked. And the teacher was protecting them, but he or she was leading from the front and was guiding them through life, right? So Jesus oftentimes will lead from the front. Because he's guiding us. He's saying, hey, this is the direction I want you to go in your life. This is how, I don't want to take things away from you, but I want to guide you to something even better. I want to guide you to something that's so much more than fake feelings when it's tied to social media. I want to bring you to something even better than the friends who are going to forget you the moment you don't act cool around them. I want to lead you to something so much better than this false, fake, whatever in this world and our culture. I want to bring you to something even better where you don't feel empty and lonely all the time. He wants to guide us to where we should be and where he has destined us to be. Number 2, leading from behind. We call this one the protector, right? This is where you're kind of sitting in the back, and I learned this, I think Chandler told me this maybe, because I'm terrible at video games and I always lose, but he was telling me something about the strongest wolf is always in the back. Was that you, Chandler? Yeah, very smart. Thank you so much. No, he told me, and I didn't believe him, but I looked it up. Yeah, so when wolves, and I'm going to get this wrong, but when wolves kind of are traveling, they put the oldest, dying ones up front, in the middle. Okay, who's up front? The young one. Okay, the young ones are up front, okay? The older dying ones are in the middle, but then the strongest and the protectors are in the back. And it's because they have a whole view of the field of where they're headed. They have a whole field of view of who's in front of them to say, hey, if something bad tries to come alongside us, something tries to push us in the other direction, something tries to come and eat us, probably the older ones, then we can jump in and protect them, okay? They're not in the back so you can get hurt. Jesus isn't saying, hey, let me protect you from behind, so you walk ahead, I'm going to let you go through that storm, and you're going to get really hurt, and then you're going to be upset, and a lot of emotions. And all. No, that's not what it is. Jesus is standing behind saying, let me protect you through these things. Now, oftentimes, we don't listen to who's guiding us, which is also Jesus. We kind of do our own thing, and then we get hurt because we weren't listening, right? So that happens. But Jesus can also lead from behind, where he's protecting us as we go through life, where he's watching out for us, and there's maybe some things that we feel like God put in place to hurt us, but that's not God. That's not of God. He didn't put us here to hurt us. He has a plan for our lives. We talked about that last week. But the third one is this, leading from the side. Now that sounds funny because you're like, what the heck? Who leads from the side? Okay. If I told you, hey, let's go walk out to my car, I don't think I would walk in front of you. We'd probably walk right alongside each other. We'd probably have a conversation, be talking. And as we're walking, I wouldn't be like, hey, we're going to turn left here. No, we would just walk together. And as we're walking, you'd kind of see the body language. And as I turn, you turn. As I go this way, you go that. That's just how it works, right? So that's leading from the side. And that is what I want us to understand. Because that is what friendship is. When you're right next to each other. When you're walking through life together, when you're having a conversation, when you're talking about your feelings, when you're talking about what happened at home last night, We're talking about where you're at with school, mentally, emotionally. You can have a conversation that way, and that is what friendship looks like. Paul says it like this in 1 Corinthians 11:1. Because leading from the side, it's this idea of leading by example. Because if you're right next to each other, you get to walk alongside it. And it says this in Corinthians 11:1. Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. It's short and sweet. But Paul, who wrote so much of the New Testament, incredible guy, so smart, so connected to God, says, follow my example as I have followed the example of Christ. The way that we follow by an example is when Jesus is right next to us. When we accept him, we say, I'm all in. Because as Jesus is leading us through this life, and we're standing right next to each other, and we say yes to it, Jesus will lead us to things that are better than the things that we say no to. Jesus will not just say no to everything. Jesus will lead us to something better, because when we say no to those things, I think we all can agree, we could list a million things that as Christians, as people in relationship with Jesus, we shouldn't do or be a part of. But when we really break those things down, I think we all can agree just about all of them aren't good for us. Just about all of them aren't going to grow us closer to God or create better lives. You see, we could break it down in a couple different ways. One, let's talk about friendships and circles and people that we're close to. You see, if you've got those friends who maybe aren't the best example, maybe for some of you got friends who are already partying, they've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend and are choosing to do things in that relationship. You have friends that do that. Are those necessarily positive and good friendships for you? Probably not. Can you love them? Absolutely. I've got a ton of friends who aren't Christians. I have a ton of friends who don't believe in Jesus. Ton of them. But should we do the things that they're doing? It's probably not good for us, because I think we all can agree, again, when it goes to social media, when it goes to parties, to other friends, whatever that is, those are going to lead us to feeling empty and alone. Because if you've got an Instagram or anything, when you post that picture and it doesn't get the same likes that you were hoping for, we feel empty, we feel alone, we feel like people don't care. Maybe you post something, put yourself out there, and all of a sudden people start roasting you. And I know, yeah, it's so funny, haha, got me. But inside, I think if we're all being really honest with ourselves, that's not how we feel. It's not just okay. It starts to eat away at us. So that is why Jesus wants to bring us, not to say no to all these things and those people and those decisions, but Jesus wants to bring us to a life where we can find positive people. We talked about this last week. We have positive people in our lives, like our small groups. But we have to say, yes, I'm all into Jesus, and we have to let him lead by example. Because we might continue to fall into those friends. I know I did in junior high and high school. When I look back, I had not great friends. When I finally got to high school and started getting more friends, not good. They got into all the things that you shouldn't, and I started to fall into some of those things. But Jesus was trying to push me back by bringing a church back into my life, by bringing positive people and people who believed in Jesus back into my life. He was trying to lead me in that direction, but it was up to me to say yes. And again, when we say no to those things, I know up front it feels like we're saying no to something that could be fun. But if you've been in those situations where you make those mistakes, where you go to hang out with those people, or you say yes to this because it seems smart or seems fun, oftentimes all it does is lead to emptiness, alone. And then what you do is you look for the next thing to get that same feeling, and the next thing to get that same feeling. And it doesn't last forever. It falls away. But Jesus wants to lead us by example into something better. So it's not about us just saying no to everything. Because a lot of you are going to say this to me. Well, wasn't Jesus hanging out with sinners, and wasn't he hanging out with people of the world? Yeah, he was. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but here's what happens sometimes. Is when we choose to hang out with those people, we choose to do those things, it's so hard to not just be in the world, but to become of the world. And what that means is when you're hanging out and doing those things, and if you don't have the right support system and the right people that Jesus will bring into your life, which is why I'm so excited you guys are all here and you show up every week because you have incredible small groups and your leaders love you guys and are here to support you. But when you're in the world, it's hard not to become of the world. And yes, again, Jesus in his life, he hung out with prostitutes and tax collectors and people who were not good. And that's what we should do is love those people. But we also have to make sure that we have a good support system. Because who did Jesus have when he was on this earth? He had 12 disciples. Incredible people that he was doing life with. So by following in Jesus' example and saying yes to him, we're going to maybe say no to not just loving those people, because that's great, right? Jesus hung out with tax collectors, but Jesus didn't go out and start collecting taxes, right? That would have been kind of weird. No, Jesus hung out with tax collectors and hung out with all these people, but he still stayed away from falling into all that. And honestly, I don't know, for me, it's not always easy to do that. It's not always easy to be in the world and not become of the world. So, again, by living in Jesus' example, have a tight-knit community of people around you who you can walk through life with. And again, when we're in the world and not of the world, you can be in the world and loving people. But what I mean is, for some of you, when I said maybe those groups of people, those friends aren't the best for you, and some of you said, yeah, they are. I'm not saying you can't love them or be around them. What I'm saying is protect yourself by not making the same decisions that they're going to make. Does that make sense? Because here's the other thing I know. Okay, as I was preparing this, I was thinking about this. What's the one thing that I'd say probably 99% of us all have in common that we enjoy? Anybody like music? Okay, I think most of us do. I wasn't, when I was in junior high, I wasn't super into music, but then I got to do it later. But music is great because music overall, the idea of it is it unites people, right? When we sing worship, all of us are getting crazy, jumping, dancing, singing. It's great. We love it. It unites us. But here's what I was gonna do. I think for a lot of us, the music we listen to maybe doesn't push us in a positive direction. Can we say that? Maybe some of it, because here's what I was gonna do. I went to look at the USA Top 50 trending music, and I was like, let me pull some of the lyrics from some of these songs. Yeah, I couldn't do that at church, because out of the top 50 in the U.S., you want to know how many weren't explicit? It's right there, 16. 16, just of the top 50, and even the ones that weren't explicit, even those ones I should not read out loud to you guys. And what it means and why I say this is music, for so many of us, we go, well, I don't listen to the words. I just listen to the beat. Okay. I hear you guys singing the songs. I remember when I first got here in Elevate, like 2 years ago, one of the first weekends, we were changing up the music and whatever, and we found a couple like instrumental songs. But it was like popular songs, but it was just the instrumental version, right? And I'm not going to point out who it was, but they're here tonight. But we started playing a song, and all of a sudden, they knew every word to that song and started singing it super loud on Sunday morning, and I ran over as fast as I could and shut that song down. Because I was like, you know what, maybe we do just listen to the beat. Because, man, there's a lot of really good, like, instrumental music out there. But then I asked some of them, I said, do you know what you were just singing? And they're like, what that means? Because you kiss your mom with that mouth? Not good. But again, even when it comes to music, for some of us, that's a trigger. For some of us, it's difficult. Where we go, no, I love this music, but is that the best thing for you? Now, here's what I know you're going to say. So you're telling me I can't listen to the music I want to listen to? It sounds like Jesus is boring and it's just a bunch of rules. For some of you, that's exactly where you're at. But one, there's better music out there for you with a positive twist. And I'm not even talking about just Christian music. I'm really not. And let me tell you, when I was your guys' age, Christian music was not fun. It was super boring, and like Christian rap I never played it in front of my friends because it was super embarrassing because it was really lame. Music's gotten way better. Let me just tell you that. But there is better music out there, even secular music, music that we wouldn't play at church, for whatever reason. But there's some music out there that is still a positive influence on you that doesn't take your mind to those dark places, doesn't take your mind to looking at girls in that way, doesn't take your mind to some of you being itemized and being looked at as property. But again, when we listen to that music and we become in the world, because, our friends are listening to it, so why shouldn't I listen to it? Then we become of the world, and we stop being able to see past it, and we start getting absorbed into it. And again, for some of you, you go, well, again, when I'm older and I choose to follow Jesus all the way, then I'll be boring like that music that you're talking about. I get where you're at. I really do. But what if Jesus is not just telling you don't listen to that music for no reason? Oh, it says the F word, it says this, whatever. He's not just saying don't listen to that. What if Jesus is saying, I don't want you to listen to that because it's not good for your soul? When you really take the music you listen to tomorrow, look at the lyrics. Is it positive? Is it good? Is it something that you're proud of? For some of you, I bet you're going to be actually really embarrassed when you look at the context of the lyrics that you're singing. And I know that's tough. But Jesus doesn't want to just say no to you. Jesus doesn't want to just say you can't do this. Jesus wants to say, I want you to live a better life, a more positive life. Because in today's world, statistically, not just for you guys, but for young adults and everybody, we have never felt more alone because of culture and the world. We've never felt more isolated, yet so connected before. But Jesus doesn't want us to just say no to the world just because Jesus doesn't want us to have fun. Jesus wants us to turn away from those things because they're not good for us. Jesus has a better plan, a better life for us over here. But what it takes is for us to see that. What it takes is for us to fully commit to who Jesus is and to be all in, no matter what our stature is, no matter what type of life we're living, no matter how things are good for us right now. We got to say yes and say, I'm fully committed. So tonight, I want us to jump in to Luke chapter 19. And here is what we're going to talk about. There's this guy in the Bible we're about to read about who had a pretty good life. He had some pretty great things. He was one of those people that was not, I guess, what we would say is good, but of the world, not bad. Not a lot of people liked him, but he was living a good life. He got a lot of money. Like, things were good, right? For a lot of us, money is king. That's all we care about. This guy's great. But this guy came to a point in his life where he said, no, I don't want to live that way because there's something I'm missing. Because this, as much as I'm living this life that I want to with all the money and all the this is Bible time, but all the cars, the mansions, whatever, big pool, PS5, all that stuff, right? He knew that there was something else for him. He knew that Jesus could bring something else to his life that was better. That he wasn't just saying no to all these things, that Jesus wanted him to just say no and walk away from this life. No, Jesus had something better for him. Jesus wanted something better for his life, and he saw it in a matter of verses and said, I'm in. So, Luke chapter 19, verse 1, it says this. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. Anybody remember the song? Does anybody know that song? Zacchaeus was a wee little man. All right, if you don't know it, ask somebody else. It's an old church song. I sang it when I was like this big. My kids know it. It's crazy. It's not that crazy. That's not a catchy song. But a man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. Remember, back in Bible times, tax collectors were not popular people. Okay, they were not, because what would happen is they would collect extra money. So when you went and paid your taxes, which everybody had to do, right, which, spoiler alert, when you're an adult, you still have to do this. You had to pay taxes, but he would say instead of, let's say, 10 gold pieces, he'd say, actually, it's going to be 14 this year. 10 would go to the government, and then he would take the rest, and he'd keep it for himself. And why was he allowed to do this? Because he always had guards with him. So whenever he was there, and if somebody said, I'm not going to pay this, he would say, arrest him and take him away. And then it wasn't just, he's in jail. No. Then your property would be taken away. Then your harvest wouldn't be, your crops wouldn't be harvested. Then all those things would fall apart. And so you had to pay. You didn't have a choice. But this guy was a tax collector. People did not like these people at all. Not cool one bit. However, the benefit of being a tax collector is what? You get a lot of money. Right? He had a big house, I'm saying a pool, all the fancy stallions, like it's like cars, back then. But you had everything you could ever want. Like that was you. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. Okay, so again, he's short, can't see, so he climbs a tree because there's something about Jesus that he wants to know. There's something about Jesus he wants to see. He wants to see the man who's been doing these miracles and living this life that he keeps hearing all these rumors about. He wants to see this guy for himself. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. Pause, time out. Freeze frame for just a second. Okay, so Jesus, the Son of God, great guy. I mean, top shelf, great guy, right? Sees Zacchaeus, who's a tax collector, who nobody really likes, wouldn't let short stuff see who Jesus was and see him coming, right? Had to climb a tree. And immediately Jesus did what? He welcomed him. Okay? Again, love God, love others. That's what we're called to do. So right there, Jesus sets an example of how we're supposed to live life. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to be the guest of a sinner." Again, right there, let's pause for a second. I'm not saying you can't be in the world. I'm not saying you shouldn't be in the world with those friends. Oftentimes, whenever I get feedback, when we're talking about friends and things like that, people go, "Well, you're telling me I can't have these friends, that I should just forget about them, and they're never going to go to church, and they're blah, blah." No, that's not what I'm saying. Be in the world. That's what Jesus did. Hang out with those people. Live life with those people. But don't be just like those people. And when I say those people, I'm talking about a lot of us here as well. We all make mistakes too. So I'm not saying look at your friends and go, "Man, I'm so much better than you. I went to Elevate the other night, and my pastor said you suck." It's not what I'm saying. Please don't tell your friends that. Please bring them next week. What I'm saying is you can be in the world, just not of the world, and falling into all the things they're doing. Jesus didn't go and hang out with Zacchaeus and say, "Hey, Zacchaeus, come down. Let's go get taxes together." No, he didn't do that. Jesus was in the world, but not of the world. He knew how to love people, be with them. But Jesus, as a human being, just like us, said, "I'm not going to do the things that you're doing. I'm not going to fall into that, because that's not good." It's not that, those things sound great. Collecting extra taxes where nobody likes you, that sounds super fun. No, but Jesus knew that I needed to love you by being with you, walking alongside you. But Jesus knew that I can't fall into those things like you're doing. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost." Pause right there. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. We are called, again, remember in Corinthians, Paul says, live in my example the same way that I lived in the example of Christ. Okay? So if Christ did this, what did Christ do? He came to save the lost. That is what we're called to do as well, save the lost. But it doesn't mean become like the lost. And again, for so many of us, when we think about parties, we think about friends, when we think about movies we watch, the music we listen to, how we treat our parents, all those things, so many of them sound super fun, right? And again, you might think, well, I want to believe, but Jesus sounds boring. Sounds like a lot of rules. Sounds like a lot of you can'ts, not you cans. But by saying no to those decisions, by saying no to the parties, by saying no to those friends, by saying no to those movies, to that music where it changes how you think about people and things, when you say no to those and you say yes to Jesus, Jesus will bring you to a fuller life. When we accept Jesus as our friend, we're able to live relaxed because we know that God is in control and we're moving in a direction that is better for us. Because I think every single person here can agree on this one thing. If we could live a life that didn't have loneliness, emptiness, sadness, anxiety, wouldn't we want to? If those things could all just be gone from our life, wouldn't we say yes to it? Well, you can. Because although people will disappoint you, While movies and music change the way we think about things and lead us to think in ways we never wanted to and see people in the wrong way, Jesus wants to promote nothing but love and joy in your life. He's not saying for you to say no to the fun because he wants you to just follow orders. No, that's not it. Jesus wants you to choose that you don't want to do those things and choose to follow him, because it will lead to eternity in heaven. Because it will lead to a better, more fulfilling life. When you have genuine and authentic friendships around you, and it doesn't lead to us feeling empty and alone. When we first look at Jesus, maybe it sounds boring and like there's a lot of rules. Maybe it sounds like something you don't necessarily want to do because you still enjoy doing this. And maybe when I'm older, I'll follow Jesus. But what if by choosing not to do that, and by choosing to follow Jesus, we could have a better life that is fuller and better than one we could have ever imagined? In John 10:10, it says this, because it's so easy for us to get caught up in what seems fun, but after the fun's over, typically there's sadness, or when we feel like we've hit the peak of the mountain and that fun is gone, what happens? You hit a valley after that, right? So John 10:10 says this, and here's why those things happen. The thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. The thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. See, those things that are fun, the reason they're fun or seem fun is it gets you there. It moves you in this direction away from Jesus. But you see, the enemy is not here to provide fun long term. It's not here to provide great things for us for the rest of our lives. No, it's a moment. It's a microscopic moment where then when it then hits a valley and hits the bottom, we go, how do I get that again? And we got to climb that mountain again to try to get that. The thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. It's not to give us a better life. It's not to give us an incredible journey. It's not to give us these amazing moments. No, it's to steal, kill, and destroy, and that's what happens after the fun is gone. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. A satisfying life. But what it means is choosing to say no to the world and making a choice to say yes to Jesus, because there's so much more for us there. There's so much more waiting for you when you choose to follow Jesus. And I know when we look at the list, it might seem up front like, no, but that seems so much better. But what I want you to do is, instead of saying, I'm kind of half in, half out, like I go to church and, I'll follow Jesus when I'm older, but these things still seem fun right now. What I want you to do is tonight make a choice. Are you in or are you out? Are you going to seek after Jesus and see where it takes you, or are you going to continue to follow the ways of the world and become of the world and be let down and be hurt and feel empty when it's all over? Because I'm not saying there's not going to be great times over there. There's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be some crazy things that happen. But what happens when that's gone? What happens when that falls away? What happens when those people leave you? What happens when you can't keep up with it? You then feel empty and alone, because that's not permanent, because that's not healthy for you. It's a moment. But by following Jesus, you can find genuine and authentic relationships. Jesus will lead from beside you by example and love you along the way. So if you remember nothing from tonight, I'm going to invite the band back up. I want you to remember this one thing. It's Jesus came to give you life, not take it away. Jesus didn't say, hey, I want to bring you into this world so I can make your life terrible. I just want to take away all the fun and all the music and the movies and the parties and the friends and the boyfriend and the girlfriend, whatever, because I want your life to be miserable here on earth. No. Our human nature says those things are fun. Our human nature says that's what I want. But I think every one of you, if you close your eyes, do that for me for just a second. Think through your life and those high points and those moments where maybe you felt like, should I be doing this? And it was fun. But when it was over, where did it leave you? The next day, how did you feel? Because Jesus did not come to take everything away from us. Jesus came to give us everlasting and eternal life in heaven. But it's a choice. You can either choose the world and choose those moments where you have to keep seeking after that high, keep seeking after those great moments, those fun times that slip and fade away. Or you can pursue Jesus, who has promised us and given us a better life. Where we have positive influence in us, which is our small group and our small group leaders. And we have a community here where you're not alone. And I'm not saying to forget those people. I'm not saying to forget your family that maybe doesn't believe this, or your friends who choose all the things that we're talking about that aren't good for us. No. Love them. Christ came here to save the lost. Jesus' example was to come here and to love people who didn't know who he was. Jesus came here to love people who were doing everything wrong. But Jesus didn't become the people doing everything wrong. So I'm not telling you, and I hear this all the time, well, you're telling me to drop all my friends, but they need me. You know, if I'm not there to just be in the circle, they're going to make some really bad choices, but I got to be there to be the voice of reason. I'm not saying forget them. I'm not saying encourage them or don't encourage them. I'm not saying to just drop them like a ton of bricks. That's not what I'm saying. Love them well, but don't become them. Choose a better life in Jesus. Choose a better life where we can save the lost, but not lose ourselves. Because Jesus came to give life and not take it away. Right now, we're going to go into a time of worship. And I just want to encourage you tonight to look at what's going on in your life, to look at the things that are quote-unquote fun, and just answer to yourself. Is that good for me? Is that building me up, or is that leading me to disappointment? Is there something better out there for me? And tonight, I want you to hold on to those papers that you wrote down. And if you're ready for it, open up in small groups about where you see God, where you see Jesus, and all the things you feel like are good or bad, or what you want, what you don't want. Because I promise you, if you make the choice to not be of the world, and you choose to follow after Jesus, your life gets so much better. Let's stand.